the previous speaker, he was talking about blockchain, and that was very intriguing. And I will be talking about Web3, which is again related in the to the blockchain space. So let me start by telling you how exactly Web3 is actually creating a paradigm shift for Web2 users, and what's the difference between the two. Now, when you talk about freedom of speech, and it is basically very important. Some of us, we live in societies where, free speech isn't allowed, and you might get banned here on social media. And we all are looking at alternative ways, basically, to express ourselves while avoiding that censorship. But when you look at it, for most people, they thought that internet is an alternative medium when compared to the traditional applications. But if you look at it, a decade ago, we used the internet, and Web2 was not really making a big difference, because the Web2 version of internet again is centralized, and it is primarily dominated by companies that provide services in exchange for our own personal data, right? But again, centralization has its benefits, but it also has some limitations. And obviously, when we have limitations, we come up with a solution. So a little bit about centralized systems, having authorities or intermediaries who basically control the network, and basically ban you or censor users' data. But it can, also result from parts of the network being cut off from interacting with the rest of the network, which is not really appreciated. And when you couple it with the fact that they basically are centralized systems, they can abuse the privacy of network members or users in the Web2 space, because they also tend to monetize on their data. Now, when you talk about what can be a solution in this space, that's where Web3 comes into picture. Now, even though Web2 isn't the version that people are aspiring for, right? The world is basically, I would say, gradually embracing Web3, because one of the reasons is the emergence of an emerging technology called blockchain. Now, it is an emerging technology because, when you talk about a population of 8 billion on this planet, we only have a few million people using a blockchain technology, and it is not really being used extensively. Now, it's an emerging technology because down the decade, I think everyone will definitely use blockchain technology. For countries, just as an example, if you take the country India, now everybody makes a payment only with a QR code. Now, back then, in 2013, nobody was using a QR code, because they thought it is, they were not technology savvy maybe, but right now, even the people on the street, or those who sell, the street vendors, they basically only use or accept payment through a QR code. So that's a little about Web2 and centralization. And when you talk about Web3 and why are we having this paradigm shift, right? The Web3 version of internet, basically, it consists of decentralized applications that run on the blockchain. Now, why are they called decentralized? They are decentralized because anyone has the permission to use their network. And what do they need to do? They simply need to create a wallet, and they just need to become part of that network. It is as simple as that. And there are no central authorities to control it or censor the network members that join into the Web3 space. Now, there are loads of benefits with Web3 as well, apart from the censorship and having the decentralization aspect to it. Let's take one very relevant example. And when you talk about Twitter, for example, Twitter, they can censor any account, or they can take down any tweet. Now, the payment service may decide whether they want to allow you payments for promoting, let's say, NFTs or anything related to blockchain. They can actually help. They can basically stop you from promoting your service on their social media platform. Now, the servers for gig economy apps, right? They could go down, and that basically would again affect any particular economy. Now, when you talk about all these limitations in Web2 and Web3, and why people are aspiring for the Web3 version of the internet, because now let's say Twitter is in Web3. The tweets basically would be unsensible because now the control is decentralized, right? Now Web3 payment apps, they do not require any personal data, and they cannot even prevent payments. You can simply go onto the blockchain and you can make your transaction with the help of a wallet address. Now, what's the other part of benefit of a Web3 application is that, the servers that they are hosted on cannot go down, because when you talk about efficient blockchains like Ethereum, right? A decentralized network of thousands of computers, right? That is what actually creates a Web3 platform, and it is not that easy that to take it down, or the downtime for a Web3 application is pretty minimal when you talk about it. And yeah, the thing is that you don't. It doesn't mean that all the services need to be turned into a DApp. These are just some examples, and I wanted to take Twitter as an example because I wanted to tell what's the benefit of a Web2 application and a Web3 application. Right now, when you talk of a centralized system, then you basically will have points of failure, and the coordination is sometimes really difficult. And when you talk about centralization of data, then the participation in the network is basically controlled by that central network. But if you talk about Web3, then the centralization part, the censorship part, there are basically no gatekeepers, and it is very hard to control the system, because if you want to control a particular network in the blockchain, then you will need to own 51% of the stake in that particular network, which is really hard for one person to have. Now, let me talk about some of the benefits of Web2 and how it is different from Web3. Some of the other reasons why there is a need is because of enhanced user experience. Users always look for enhanced user experience where they can, and enhanced user interface where they find it very simple. They do not want to be entering too many details, for example. Now, when you talk about a Web2 user, he will need to enter his name, phone number, give his mail ID, and he might need to get some other documents to create an account. But if you talk about a Web3 application, then it is simply with a click of a button where he already holds a decentralized wallet, let's say MetaMask, for example, and he simply connects his wallet and he is into the application. So that's one very important reason why there's a transition of users into a more decentralized future. Now, you call it decentralized internet, or you call it blockchain-based platforms. Now, the best part about using a Web3 application is that there's something known as interoperability. Now, when you talk about interoperability, in a Web2 application, whenever you make a purchase, let's say you have installed a game and you purchase some assets inside the Web2 application game, you basically cannot use any of those assets, digital assets, outside that particular application in Web2. But when you talk about Web3 applications, right, they are pretty compatible with most of the other Web3 applications, and it makes it so convenient for the user and so beneficial, because they can simply use digital assets that they purchased in one Web3 application on other Web3 applications as well. So for every dollar that is spent on a Web2 application, it's limited to that application. But every dollar that is spent on Web3 applications, they get to use it maybe in another 4 or 5 applications, because Web3 platforms are usually compatible with, they are made compatible with each other, or they're